They have to come up with new categories for the awards. The Golden Globes came up with a new one this year. They're basically a picture people liked. They had, they had become such self-congratulating, virtue-signaling bores that they had to go, oh yeah, let's make a category for that. People actually paid to see something great. So there's no Oscar categories. Would you like to hear the Oscar category? I knew you would. I knew you would want to hear it.
We have to be honest. Award shows have completely lost the plot. It feels like walking into a room where everyone is exhausting themselves, patting their own backs just for being there. It's bizarre. Bill Maher has been hitting this specific nerve lately because the Oscars and the Golden Globes don't feel like celebrations of art anymore. They feel like expensive lectures on moral superiority. If you've ever sat through a 3-hour broadcast wondering why it felt like a mandatory HR seminar, you know exactly what he's talking about. Here is the core of Maher's argument, and it's genuinely hard to ignore. These ceremonies aren't adding new categories because film has evolved. They're doing it because the culture shifted into a shouting match. The internet got louder, the industry got more terrified of the mob, and now everyone is sprinting to prove they are on the correct side of every social media storm. You can see the divide clearly. Sure, some categories changed for valid reasons, like when streaming platforms fundamentally rewired the business. That's fine. The way we consume media changed, the funding changed, and even the definition of what a movie is moved. In those cases, the new awards actually make sense. Then there's the other kind, the panic awards. These are born in boardroom meetings where someone says, "The public is angry. We need to look deep." Suddenly, a category appears that is essentially Best Picture, but one people actually watched. Maher's joke about the Golden Globes creating a box office achievement award hits because it's a confession. Imagine needing a special trophy just to admit that yes, people actually paid money to see the movie. It's a strange, baffling disconnect from reality.
About the Oscars is they do reflect society. That's why we pay so much attention, partly. And things are always changing in our industry, like streaming. You know, it just changed the whole industry. This happens so often. So they have to come up with new categories for the awards. The Golden Globes came up with a new one this year. They're basically a picture people liked. They had, they had become such self-congratulating, virtue-signaling bores that they had to go, oh yeah, let's make a category for that. People actually paid to see something great. So there's no Oscar categories. Would you like to hear the Oscar category? I knew you would.
Most people are out here working hard, paying bills, and just trying to enjoy a quiet movie night, but modern awards act like enjoying a film is somehow beneath us. You liked it? Great. But was it important enough? This is why the virtue-signaling culture in Hollywood irritates so many people. It's not that audiences hate messages or social commentary. Movies have always had those. In fact, the greatest films of all time usually do. The problem arises when the message becomes the primary product and the story is just a vehicle for a lecture. That is when the viewers leave, the ratings crater, and the studios start to freak out. Instead of asking how to make movies fun again, they ask how many more categories they can add so everyone feels represented. It sounds inclusive, but it starts to feel like a high-end participation trophy factory. Maher's comedy works because he takes this logic to its ultimate, absurd conclusion. He suggests fake categories like Best Editing for a film still an hour too long, which would honestly be the most competitive race of the night. You can already name 5 movies from last year that would be nominated. Then he goes even further with categories like Achievement in Ethnic Prosthetics or Best Performance by a Replaced Actor. You laugh because it's ridiculous, but the laugh reveals the truth. The system is broken. The joke isn't that awards shouldn't change. It's that they are changing to impress industry insiders while completely ignoring the people at home.
Best editing of a film that's still an hour too long. Achievement in ethnic prosthetics. Best achievement in replacing an actor who tweeted something offensive. Best use of a freeze frame, followed by the words, "You're probably wondering how I got here." The Michael Bay Coolest Fireball Award. The least annoying picture where the plot is driven by a simple misunderstanding. Best song performed by someone your niece can't believe you've never heard of.
This is where the situation gets truly interesting. Awards used to carry weight because they reflected the broader culture. Even if you hated the winner, the nominees felt like a snapshot of what America was actually watching. People argued about it at work and made bets with their friends. Now, the public hasn't even heard of half the winners. It's not because the audience is dumb. It's because the selection process has moved into a gated community where quality is measured in ideology points. You can feel the vibe shift. They tell us a film is important, but is it actually good? Does anyone quote it or want to see it twice? Or did it just win because it checked every box on a cultural list? When awards stop honoring what people actually connect with, they lose their authority. It's no longer the best of the year. It's just best according to a tiny Twitter committee.
Best use of a real-life TV talk show host whoring himself out to make the movie seem more realistic. And how is President Ellis responding? Well, I know it'd usually get a lot of laughter. I had no idea this could actually be a job. I mean, I knew it could be a...
This leads to the bigger point Maher keeps hammering. The fear. There is a palpable fear of saying the wrong thing or having a joke stripped of its context and turned into a viral weapon. It's the fear of the mob. You might think this is an exaggeration, and some claim cancel culture isn't even real. I always wonder what planet those people are living on. We have seen careers incinerated over old social media posts, bad jokes, or simple misunderstandings. Maher makes a brutal but liberating point here. Most online outrage is shallow and temporary. People scream for blood today and find a new target 48 hours later. The internet has the attention span of a goldfish on a caffeine high. He points to Ben Stiller and Tropic Thunder, a movie people say couldn't be made today. Stiller refused to apologize for it, and shockingly, his career didn't end. The sky didn't fall. That is the lesson Maher wants Hollywood to learn. If you stand by your work, the outrage usually just evaporates. Is that a universal rule? No. Some people are more vulnerable than others. But if everyone pre-apologizes for everything, the loudest critics become the permanent owners of the culture.
You know, when movie lovers get together these days, one phrase that comes up a lot and always makes me sad is, yeah, you couldn't make that one today. Top of that list is the great Tropic Thunder, which the scolds have been after for years. But in February, Ben Stiller tweeted, "I make no apologies for Tropic Thunder. It's always been a controversial movie since when we opened, proud of it and the work everyone did on it." See, people, it's not that hard. He said it, and he still got a commercial. And the lesson is, if you stand up to the mob for just a day or two, their shallow, impatient, immature, smartphone-driven, gerbil minds will forget about it and go on to the next nothing burger, and you still will have your cojones.
This is where Maher's central theme hits the hardest. He's talking about rewarding courage, the kind that refuses to be bullied into a specific ideological mold. He points to moments where leadership actually worked, like Netflix during the Dave Chappelle controversy. When employees walked out and the pressure peaked, Netflix essentially said, "We do boundary-pushing content here. If you can't handle that, maybe this isn't the right company for you." Regardless of your opinion on the comedy, that moment was significant. It was a major institution deciding that they wouldn't let internal activism dictate the rules of their entire platform.
This next cojones goes to a man who's dear to my heart for standing up for stand-up. When dozens of Netflix employees walked out over Dave Chappelle's reckless decision to perform comedy on his comedy special, CEO Ted Sarandos could have pulled the special and replaced it with more episodes of Who Wants to Watch Koreans Get... But instead, he reminded his Netflix employees that comedy exists to push boundaries and told them if you'd find it hard to support our content breadth, Netflix may not be the best place for you.
Here is the uncomfortable truth that few want to say out loud. A massive amount of woke messaging in entertainment isn't coming from the fans. It's coming from inside the writers' rooms and corporate HR offices. It's coming from people who believe their primary job is to correct the audience rather than entertain them. Art can and should challenge us, but the second it becomes a checklist or a sermon, it ceases to be art and becomes propaganda with a higher production budget. Maher also brings up the case of J.K. Rowling. No matter your stance, her story shows how fast the moral ground moves. She went from being the villain of the right for writing about magic to being the villain of the left for her views on gender. Today's hero is almost always tomorrow's heretic because the standards of online purity are never satisfied. That's why Maher's idea for an award show for people who resist cancellation is so funny and yet so tragic. It's funny because you can imagine the red carpet. I'm wearing No Regrets by Dior. But it's sad because even people who agree with him are too afraid to be the first ones to speak up.
J.K. Rowling used to be a villain to the right because she wrote books about witchcraft. Now she's a villain to the left because she has the crazy belief that there's more to being a woman than pronouns and lipstick. So that was the point of the evening. How do we take a stand against cancel culture? And I suggested, since we were mostly all in show business, that we start an award show to honor the brave people who have fought back. Well, I got to tell you, the idea was met with great enthusiasm by everyone. And in short order, different people were suggesting the ways that their varied talents could be put to use.
The comedy world is where this conflict is the most intense. Maher argues that comedians are now treated like walking time bombs. The industry wants edgy humor, but only if it's pre-cleared by the most sensitive person in the room. He points out a glaring double standard. Will Smith committed a physical act on the Oscars stage and wasn't removed. Yet Kevin Hart lost a hosting gig over decades-old jokes. Regardless of the specifics, the message is clear. Our standards are upside down. Physical actions are often excused, while jokes are treated as unforgivable crimes.
Woke hecklers who literally have to wait for the laughter to die down before they yell, "That's not funny!" This war on jokes must end. Will Smith didn't get kicked out of the Oscars for going Ike Turner on Chris, but Kevin Hart got kicked out of hosting it for a joke.
This is the danger of turning our entertainment into a permanent morality trial. You cannot have comedy in a world that refuses to look at intent or context. Comedy is designed to test the edges and poke at sacred cows. It should make you laugh and then make you think, should I be laughing at that? That tension is where the art lives. But Maher doesn't stop with Hollywood. He looks at academia too. He discusses colleges dropping standardized tests because they are labeled discriminatory. And he praises the schools that are bringing them back. His point is that higher education is supposed to be difficult. It's not a vibes-based experience. Students should have to prove they are ready for the challenge. He rejects the idea that measuring knowledge is a moral crime or inherently racist.
First cojones goes to Dartmouth University President Sion Baylock, who reinstated standardized testing at admissions, and by bringing back the SAT, made a clear and brave statement. It's not racist to test if high school students know.
There is a very useful way to view this debate. Even if standardized tests are flawed, and they are, there is a massive difference between fixing a system and pretending that measurement itself is oppression. When you remove standards, you don't fix inequality. You just hide it until it becomes an even bigger problem later. When Maher says, if you're not ready, don't worry, plenty of schools are test optional. It's harsh, but it highlights a real problem. Are we building for excellence or for optics? It all circles back to the awards. The Oscars used to be about the best, period. Now, the vibe is that they are rewarding the correct message, and the audience can smell it. That is why people say, you couldn't make that today. They mean the creative spirit is shrinking under social pressure. Writers and directors are second-guessing themselves into oblivion. That is how you get bland, committee-written movies where the characters talk like corporate HR memos.
Who are these people who say cancel culture isn't a real thing? Just among comedians who've gotten fired and lost gigs for exercising their freedom of expression, the toll is high. Gilbert Gottfried, and Kathy Griffin were tasteless. So what? That's why we like them.
Ultimately, Maher's rant is a warning. If Hollywood keeps prioritizing social approval over great storytelling, these shows will become totally irrelevant. It's not because people hate progress. It's because nobody wants to be lectured for 3 hours by multimillionaires. The fix is simple. Reward brilliance, reward risk, and reward stories that actually stick with people. Let comedy be messy and human again. So I have to ask, do you still care about the Oscars? Have they gotten better, or are they just a relic of the past? Tell me about the last movie you watched that actually felt bold. I really want to know what you think, because at the end of the day, culture belongs to the audience, not a committee. If the industry wants us back, they have to stop performing morality and start performing greatness.